This is our 5-year-old food forest, and it is an ever-changing and evolving space. And this year we are feeling that it may be our biggest harvests yet from all the fruit trees and bushes that we have in here. So we're going to start at the top and work our way through, and I'll share with you about all the different plants and some of the new things that we've been adding to our food forest over the last year. So this is where it starts, and right at the top we've got a beautiful patch of lemon balm here, and I love harvesting lemon balm for teas. We have it fresh at this time of year, and then I'm also harvesting it and drying it to store through the winter. In fact, just yesterday I had the dehydrator packed full of beautiful harvests, mostly all for teas that will see us right through the year. And hopefully this year we're going to be fully self-sufficient in all of our own teas. We've got this beautiful Szechuan pepper tree at the top here, and this one has really leapt into growth and life this year, which we are really pleased to see because it has taken a few years to get going. I'm pretty sure this is its third growing season. We have got another one. We did have two. You need at least two of these trees to get the fruits, the peppers, and we lost one a year or so ago, so we have got another one growing on in a pot. I'm going to let it get a bit bigger before I plant it out, learning from what happened to it last time, going out a little bit too small. We've got Solomon seal here, which has been looking beautiful. I just love the shape of the leaves. That was in flower quite recently with its beautiful dangling delicate white flowers. Solomon seal is something that I will harvest in the future, again as a medicinal plant. We've got it dotted throughout the food forest. Here is one of our younger trees. I think this one's probably in its third year now as well, and it's a mulberry tree, and you can see even for a small tree it is absolutely covered in little fruits. Now this one has been quite slow growing. We've got another mulberry tree on the property as well, and it's grown a lot bigger, but this one always fruits, it always seems happy, but it's just a little bit slower than the other tree that we've got. Coming this way, we've got a big patch of apple mint here. And apple mint is something that I do really have to manage still in the food forest because this stuff spreads like mad. We started off with just one patch of it over in the back corner, and it is literally everywhere now. It is a lovely plant, but we don't need quite as much of it as we have got, and it would take over, I think, if we let it. But it looks lovely here. I've got a new rose that I put in just this year. The roses we've got dotted through the food forest, that's been a new addition, and I'm going to be harvesting rose petals in the future for teas, and also the rose hips at the end of the seasons because they are super high in vitamin C, so I'm really excited about working with those in the future. We've got strawberries dotted all through these little bed areas as well, or guilds. The strawberries are getting a little bit swamped this year, and we haven't actually been harvesting many from the food forest. We do have a big strawberry bed elsewhere which has been giving us volumes of strawberries that we are absolutely loving at the moment. But this is one of the things that we're learning about our food forest. In past years we've had really good strawberry harvests from here, but as everything is filling out and taking shape more, maybe things like the strawberry ground covers aren't going to be such a productive crop in here. And this is one of the ways that the food forest is constantly changing, and we're working with how it adapts. Here, this is my favourite patch of mint, and I was harvesting and dehydrating or drying some of this yesterday. This is chocolate mint. I kind of try and keep the patch no bigger than this, but I think it does creep out a little bit at the ends each year, and yeah, I just mow it back into place mainly. Deep within the mint we have got some rhubarb plants, and normally this works really well being surrounded by the mint, but our rhubarb hasn't been as strong this year. But we do have another story about rhubarb that I'll be sharing in another video. And just behind Dan, actually here, a very new addition, which we're super excited about. Dan has been dotting through some bananas, and if we can get those going, they will just grow tall and have beautiful tropical looking leaves. We won't get to harvest bananas, edible bananas from them in the UK, but they will look beautiful, and we can always use the leaves for biomass, and it's just going to give our food forest that lovely tropical feel. We've got another one down here. This bed in the middle is a little Mediterranean, or mainly Mediterranean herb garden, which I've been working with over the last couple of years. Adding herbs to the food forest has been a real focus for me over this season and last season. I work with herbs, I use them a lot in cooking, medicinally, teas. So getting as much variety of herbs into here is really important to me. This beautiful plant here is actually a kind of perennial, kind of like a perennial parsnip. But actually what I grow it for, I'm not that fond of the root, but it has beautiful flowers, and these flowers smell divine. They have such a deep vanilla scent, absolutely stunning. So in here we've got oregano, we've got thyme, we've got rosemary hiding in there, we've got some parsley which is trying to work its way through. This beautiful flower, which is nearly finishing now and is kind of taking over a little bit, so again some population management is going to be needed here. This is skull pit, and you can eat the leaves of this plant when it's young. It's at its best. This is a new black currant that we've put in just this year, and one thing I'm really pleased to see, which I just managed to spot before I mowed the paths back through here the other day. This is skull cap, another herb that I just added last year. This is a really good medicinal herb. It's a carminative, and I made some tinctures with this last year, and I wasn't sure if it was going to come back, and I'm not sure. I need to check if this is a perennial or an annual. It looks like it's grown back from last year's plant, so I'm assuming perennial. I did let some of it drop seed as a backup as well, which is really lucky because the seed which I tried to germinate myself didn't actually come through this year. So super happy to see that little patch there coming up. I've got this beautiful salvia here, and I'm trying to get a few salvias dotted through the food forest. This one is doing the best because this is our most open space with full sun up here, and salvias do love full sun. I just love their vibrant colour. You can actually use the flowers and the leaves. They have like a black curranty flavour, but I just love the pop of colour that it adds. Some of the ones that we've got under the trees that when I planted them weren't so covered aren't actually doing as well because they're not getting enough sunlight. This area here we had a complete overhaul on over the winter, and some things are working really well. It's not quite gone exactly as I envisaged it, but we have lots of new additions which I'm really happy about, and I'm really happy with how it looks still anyway. And again, it's just evolving as it wants to. This was a mushroom bed here, and we have harvested just a few wine cap King Stropharia mushrooms from here. I'd like to get some fresh wood chip down and see if we can get them going a little bit more. Obviously, we could do with some rain, and that might bring them up again. This was another newer addition here. This is a russet apple tree. I love the old russet apples, so really excited for this one to grow on. Through this side we've got summer raspberries mainly here. This is summer raspberries, these are summer raspberries, so they are forming up and will be fruiting soon. Hiding here, getting a little bit swamped by various other things, is a feijoa, and that one will hopefully eventually give us some fruit. We've got another feijoa just down where we walked past a minute ago as well, so they can be pollination partners. But through here you can see the apple mint is just trying to take over. I actually was hoping to get a full ground cover of strawberries in this area where it was quite open, and I transplanted loads of strawberry runners early in the season, but they are actually getting swamped by pretty much everything else which is growing up through, which is fine. It still looks beautiful and there are so many edibles in here. Along this hedge line we've also dotted in some asparagus. I'm not too sure how well it will go. I'm not sure if it's going to get enough full sun going forward, but we'll see. You can see this one just coming through here. And we've also got cannas. Dan has planted lots of beautiful cannas all along here, again for that lovely tropical look. They have beautiful flowers, beautiful leaves. It's going to look really stunning later in the year as well, as some of these later flowering plants come through. We've got a self-seeded or naturally grown dog rose here, which I just love, so I left that one in place. We've added quite a lot of honeyberries this year. There's one of the newest ones. Again, I had to give that a little bit of a tidy around just yesterday because it's quite a small bush at this stage. But as you will see down here, once it takes hold, it should make a beautiful big bush. I've also got perennial kales dotted through. There was another one that was looking really good actually at the top. This one's maybe struggling a little bit, but they nearly always pull through. The perennial kales are just that little bit hardier than some of the other varieties that you get. This is a honeyberry that was a year on again from the small one down here, so you can see the kind of growth difference that 1 year gives. And right next to it here we've got all of these beautiful self-seeded foxgloves, and we just kind of let them do their thing. Again, I manage them a little bit where need be and when I get chance to. They just look so stunning with their beautiful flower spikes. The bees love them. There is nothing better than seeing a little bee coming out of the flower. Now this area here was one of the spaces where I cut back autumn raspberries. And what's been really interesting, I usually do this every other year, but this area, the autumn raspberries are really struggling to come back through. As you can see, the apple mint is taking over. We've got comfrey that's spreading itself slowly through the food forest, stinging nettles. So I'm not sure how well this patch of raspberries is going to come back, but we'll wait and see, and probably at some point I'll step in and give them a little helping hand. Definitely by removing some of the apple mint, I would imagine. It is a thug. Again here, this is one of the other patches of autumn raspberries coming back through, and you can see much the same. The apple mint is really trying to take over. Fortunately, this big patch here is doing really well. It is an absolute wildlife haven though. Again, the stinging nettles coming through. We've got the sticky weed or goosegrass all through it. Lemon balm here around the base of this younger plum tree. This plum tree I think is in its 3rd year now. I think this is a Marjorie seedling, and you can see it has actually got a few little fruits on it this year. But I'm really happy to see all the lemon balm popping up in various places around the food forest, because I actually had a period of about 2 years where I kept planting roots of lemon balm and none of them were ever coming through, and I just couldn't work out what was happening, because normally it's something that grows quite easily. And all of a sudden this year I'm seeing lemon balm popping up everywhere. Really happy about that. Love lemon balm. It's such a beautiful herb. This is another plum tree here. It is absolutely covered. This is an opal plum. It didn't fruit very much last year, which I wasn't surprised at, because 2 years ago, when the tree was still a little bit too small, it was covered in fruit. We probably should thin some of this. I tend not to do that too much. We are in June now, early June, and you often find that you get something called the June drop, and in theory the trees should naturally thin themselves. So I'm not going to step in and do anything just yet, because we'll see what happens with what fruit comes off naturally first. Another little clump of autumn raspberries here. Our apple trees are doing fantastic this year. Again, we're really noticing an every other year cycle with nearly all of the fruit trees in here. 2 years ago, this tree was absolutely prolific. It didn't have much fruit last year, just a handful of fruit, and now this year, again, it is absolutely covered and looking beautiful. This is a Cox variety of apple. Most of them are varying Cox varieties that we have in the food forest. We've got a massive clump of comfrey underneath, and I will cut this comfrey back soon. This is actually the seeding variety of comfrey. That is why it is slowly spreading throughout the food forest, which again, I'm happy to let it do to a point, because it is amazing using for chop and drop to give back to the soil. So I will just mow it down if I need to. We use a really clever mulching mower with a double blade here, and so it just chops everything back up and puts it on the ground, chops it up really nice and fine, and yeah, it's constantly giving back to the ground. So here we've got some blueberries, 2 different blueberry bushes here, and again, this is the second year that our blueberries are looking like we could get a really, really good harvest from them. This one is absolutely covered, although the leaves have got a little bit of something going on with it, but there is certainly plenty of fruit. Beautiful lavender here, which again I'm hoping to harvest from for teas, just a little bit into a tea mix that I'll make in the future. Interestingly, this blueberry bush right behind, again covered in fruit, but whatever is affecting the leaves on that one doesn't appear to be a problem for this plant here, which again is really interesting when you think about it, because it shows that it's obviously definitely down to individual plants, how they can, how their immune system works, I guess, rather than things necessarily affecting each other that are close by. So that's a great example actually of how you don't always need to worry about things spreading if your plants are healthy overall. This is our family pear tree. It's got 3 different varieties of pears on it. Again, going with the 2-year cycle, last year, whilst our apples weren't as great, this pear tree was absolutely covered in pears. We had as many pears as we could eat and dry. And now this year, it did start off having some fruit on it early in the season, but actually I noticed yesterday that nearly all of the fruit has fallen off naturally, and I could only find just 1 pear. I'll see if I can spot it again for you. It might have come off now here. So there's just 1 little pear here that I can spot. So this may not be our year for pears, but it is very likely going to be our year for apples and plums and many other things. We've got elderberry coming up through here. They've been in the ground for about 3 years. We've got another rose. This is a rose that supposedly can take partial shade here, so that one's a little bit behind some of the others in full sun. This beautiful Irish peach apple tree is covered in apples. So it's looking like if nature is good to us, we will get a good harvest from this tree. Our gooseberry bushes, again, are absolutely covered in fruit. Last year we had a really good year with gooseberries. They are covered again. We are noticing a few squirrels in the food forest though at the moment. So again, this is where nature always has a hand in seeing what they are going to leave for us and what they might decide they have a fancy of this year. Every year I seem to notice that they target maybe 1 or 2 particular trees or bushes, and over time they will strip them. So we'll see what happens. Our black currants are all forming up, and we're just starting to get our first few currants changing colour. Actually, I noticed the other day. We've got quite a few different varieties of black currants. Here's another one here. Like you see, there's just one black fruit in amongst all of those green ones there. And the growth on everything does seem to be really strong this year, and I'm wondering if that is partly due to the fact that I mulched everything really heavily over winter, and I actually used mulch that came out of our hotbed that we had from the year before, which had a mixture of things like horse manure and wood shavings, and it also had the contents from our composting toilet, which we made sure was really, really broken down. The plants seem to be really, really happy about that. So it's a great use, closing up the cycle of everything on our land, which is just beautiful. We've got horseradish coming through down here as an underground layer. Again, more lemon balm that keeps popping up. A beautiful patch. We have got figs this year as well. We've got some bigger figs on some of the trees down the other side, which we'll get to in just a minute. We've got a lovely big patch of marjoram here. Another apple tree which is pretty laden with fruit. In fact, so much so that all these branches have really dropped down over the last couple of weeks. Under here you see hiding, we've got another perennial cow there, and it's really interesting because this one is doing really well with the dappled shade that the apple tree is offering. Beautiful patch of oregano here. I did a big harvest of oregano about a month ago and have dried lots of it to save for the winter months. It's absolutely beautiful. That will be flowering soon, and that's going to look really great too. This, Dan, remind me what this one's called? The cross between? Just a berry. So yeah, this is a just a berry. It's a cross between a gooseberry and a blackberry. And again here you can just see some of the first fruits changing colour. We've never actually had a good harvest from this bush yet. Now this could be the year. Normally it gets stripped by birds or maybe it's squirrels or something, but it is really covered this year. It has had a massive growth spurt. We had to cut it back a lot, I think 2 years ago. So the following year we didn't expect to harvest, and now this year it has just exploded again. So fingers crossed we will have just berries for the first time. This is another blackcurrant, lots of fruit on here and also lots of new growth. Again, this one, this is Ben Nevis, so it's a big variety. And I had to cut this one back to open up the paths the same time that we cut back the josterberry. So it didn't do much last year. And the fruit always grows on the older wood. Look, here's actually a really good example. You can see the new growth and you can see this is the older wood and that's got all the fruit on it. Yet all of these young stems that are growing up, lots of new growth, no fruit, but then down on the older wood is where it is fruiting. We've got red currants through here as well. They often get stripped by the birds or the squirrels. I can never seem to get them to a point of harvest when they've got a really nice flavour. So I'm quite happy to let the wildlife have the red currants if they leave all of the other things that we do love and enjoy. This is one of 2 aronia berries that we have. Again, it's looking like it's going to be a really good year for fruit. Last year we had our first epic harvests of the aronia berries. We've got one here and one just behind where Dan is there. And mostly I froze the berries whole and used them all through the winter in smoothies and on breakfast, and it was absolutely beautiful because they are such a beneficial fruit. They're really high in antioxidants and lots of good stuff. I also made a tincture out of them because they are just such a good berry. Now, somewhere around here we have our first proper size figs that we have seen to date. Look at those. And we've got, I think, 3 or 4 fig trees dotted through here, and each one does have a couple of really nice sized fruits on it. So again, fingers crossed we may get figs for the first time this year. Another rose here. This was another partially shade tolerant one, so we'll see how that goes. It's just budding up, so It won't be long until I get to see the flowers on that one. Another Cox variety of apple tree here. Medium amount of fruit on this one. This one, out of all of our apple trees, is one of the slower producers, I would say. It is known to be a little bit fussier, that variety. More black currants under the trees here, more gooseberries. Interestingly, these two bushes here, they have got a few fruits on, but I'm noticing I need to check what varieties they are. I think this one is in Invicta, and it doesn't fruit as well as the Hinamaki varieties that we mainly have in the food forest. This is a Hinamaki here, and this one nearly always has more fruit on it than these two, even though it's in lots of shade from this cherry plum tree above us. This is a big cherry tree here. We will soon be having to cut some of these branches just to lift the crown of this tree a little bit, because it is starting to get difficult to move through some of the paths. We did have a handful of cherries on this tree that I noticed for the first time, but they were just starting to turn red, and I saw a few of them on the floor yesterday, so I think the birds have already pecked those off. More gooseberries here. This gooseberry bush is looking great, hiding in amongst all of the comfrey. Another apple tree here. This is its first year. This is a Braeburn apple tree, and this is the first year it's properly fruited. Again, it may have a little bit too much fruit on it for the size of the tree, but we'll see how that holds up. It's looking quite happy at the moment, so we'll leave nature to do its thing. Up here we've got another cherry tree, and again, this is the most cherries I have seen on this tree to date. Whether we will get to harvest any, we literally had 2 or 3 that we harvested last year. Whether we will get to harvest any that the birds will leave behind is yet to be seen. But there's a few nice sized ones coming up. But what I'm noticing is they tend to peck them off as they start changing colour, and again, like these small ones aren't quite right. You can see there's some discoloration on there, and that one just fell off as I touched the tree. But they are definitely getting more and more established and fruiting more every year. We added some more cherry trees to other areas of the land when we learned about the pollination partners that were needed this year. So perhaps that's one of the things that's helped, and going forward maybe we will get to harvest lots of beautiful cherries. This is an area I had a really big clear out of over the winter. It was just getting completely swamped by yarrow, which I'm still having to manage at the moment, and try not to let it just take over. I do love yarrow, really happy to make tinctures and things from that, and the flowers are beautiful, beautiful for the insects and pollinators. But this whole area was literally yarrow, so we laid cardboard and wood chip, and I'm hoping that one day this area will become a bit of a mushroom bed. I have hopefully inoculated these wood chips with some oyster mushrooms that we had growing in a bucket. So maybe one day in the future we'll see some of those popping up. For now, I had some spare Marketmore cucumber plants. So Marketmore is a good outdoor variety of cucumber. So through here is dotted about 5 cucumbers. So I'm hoping that they might just trail all over the floor, and we'll see if we get some good cucumbers from this area this year. And look, you can see here, look, this is a cherry that was just starting to change colour and has probably been pecked at by a bird or just blown off by the wind. Also through here I've been transplanting New Zealand spinach and nasturtiums, but you can see here, look, this is all the yarrow, and it is desperately just trying to sneak back into the bed. So it's something that I'm really having to keep an eye on. So down here we've got some more lavender, and we've got strawberries around the edges, which I'm hoping, where this area is more open at the moment, that they might root through and run into the wood chip, because one thing we've learnt about strawberries is that they really love growing in wood chip. So hopefully if I can get the strawberries more into that area again, which is what we had here before the yarrow took over, that would be a really good use of space, because again this is a bit more of an open full sun space here. This is an Asian pear tree that Dan grafted onto a different rootstock. What was the rootstock, Dan?
Wild pear.
Oh, onto a wild pear tree. Now we've heard from other people that Asian pear trees can take quite a long time to come into fruit, and whilst this is looking really healthy, it has been a good 2, maybe 3 years to even get it to this stage.
At least, yeah.
But yeah, obviously all of our fruit trees, we understand when we're planting them up that you're largely planting for the future and not for immediate harvests. This is a little guild or bed that I've been working on this year. Got another young rose that went in at the beginning of the season, which is just budding up and is about to burst. We've got more perennial kale, again strawberries, dill, which is a herb that I just love in salads and on new potatoes at this time of year. More rosemary, thyme. The apple mint is trying to creep in again, and I'm just keeping that at bay. We've got chives down here, more nasturtiums, more perennial kale. The one thing here with this patch of apple mint, I'm letting this bit be, but I do need to tidy up some of the stuff that's working its way in. We've got one of 2 climbing vines here, Schizandra, which I'm trying to grow again as a medicinal plant, and the Schizandra actually grows better with shade. So I've left this patch of mint here to shade out this Schizandra plant, because last year it grew on really well in the early season, and then I actually thought we'd lost the plant. It literally shriveled up, and I realised that it was getting too much full sun, thanks to somebody that I was chatting with on Instagram, Jay, and he is having quite good success growing Schizandra, and he was telling me that all of his plants are better in full shade. So yeah, so I'm letting that patch of apple mint be to provide the shade there. I've got St John's wort here, which is just about to flower. I planted some plugs into this area which I grew from seed 2 years ago, and I'm really happy to see that it's come back really strong this year. So again, I'm hoping to get my first harvest of St John's wort, which again I will dry and keep in stock for teas. This beautiful big apricot tree is fruiting for the first time this year. We are noticing quite a bit of cracking on some of the fruits, so we'll see how that goes. And it has dropped quite a lot of fruit that it did have already, but it was absolutely covered, and there is still a good amount of apricots on here, so we are really hoping that we will get a beautiful harvest of apricots this year as well. So I hope you've enjoyed having a look around our 5-year-old food forest. It is really bursting with life. It is really taking shape more and more every year, and it is such a joy to be in this space. It does still need a little bit of management, as I've been mentioning as we go through, and I think it's a little bit of a thought process that food forests don't need much input, and they don't once they get established, but you do certainly need to control certain species that you will no doubt have in your food forest. For us in here mainly it's bramble, the apple mint and sheep sorrel. But over time we are definitely seeing that it does get more and more balanced, and we are having to do less work, but certainly Population management is the key in your food forest to keep the crops and the plants growing that you really love the most. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Any comments or questions that you have, we love hearing from you, so drop them down below and we'll catch you here again soon. Peace and plants.